The signal came on a quiet night when nothing special was supposed to happen. Park sat alone in the control room of the Lunar Observatory. She was a radio astronomer, which meant she spent most of her time listening to the sounds of space. Most nights were boring. Space was full of noise, but it was usually just stars dying or black holes eating planets. Nothing important, nothing new. But tonight was different. Her computer showed a strange pattern. At first, she thought it was a mistake, maybe a broken satellite or some garbage floating in orbit. She checked the data 3 times, then 4 times. Then she called her supervisor. "There's something here," she said, "something I've never seen before." The pattern repeated every 47 seconds. It was too perfect to be natural. Stars didn't make perfect patterns. Planets didn't send repeating messages. This was something else. This was something made by someone. Within hours, the entire station was awake. Scientists crowded around screen, talking fast and pointing at numbers. They ran the signal through every program they had. They compared it to every known language, every code, every system in their database. Nothing matched. "It's not human," said one scientist. "Obviously," said another, "but what is it?" Had been working on something else while they argued. She was trying to find where the signal came from. When she finished her calculations, her hands started shaking. "It's not from our solar system," she said quietly. Everyone stopped talking. "It's coming from 442, that's over 100 light years away." The room went silent. 100 light years. That meant the signal had been traveling through space for 100 years before reaching Earth. Whatever sent it had done so when their great-grandparents were still alive. But there was more. "The signal isn't aimed at us," continued. "It's a tight beam between 2 points in that system. We just happened to catch the edge of it." "So we're reading someone else's mail," said her supervisor. "Yes, and I think I know what it says." The translation took 3 weeks. The message wasn't complicated once they understood the basic structure. It was a distress call, a cry for help, and it had been repeating for over 3,000 years. The message said, "This is Prime. We are under attack. Our cities are burning. Our people are dying. We call upon the dominion of 12 worlds, our allies and protectors, to send help. Please, anyone. We cannot survive alone." 3,000 years, the same message over and over, and no one had ever answered. Admiral read the translation in his office at United Earth Space Command headquarters. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his whole life preparing for a war that never came. Now, at 62 years old, he was looking at proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. And that somewhere out there, an entire civilization had died screaming for help. "What do we know about this dominion?" he asked. Commander stood across from his desk. She was young and smart, with the kind of sharp mind that questioned everything. "Nothing, sir. We didn't even know they existed until now." "And the same, but based on the signal's age, they're probably extinct. Whatever attacked them finished the job thousands of years ago." Nodded slowly. He stared at the translation for a long time. Then he made a decision that would change everything. "We're going," he said. "Blinked, sir. We're going to 442. We're going to find out what happened to these people." "Admiral, with respect, that's insane. We've never traveled that far. Our fold space technology is experimental at best. We could lose the entire crew. And even if we get there, what's the point? They've been dead for 3,000 years." Stood up and walked to his window. Outside, Earth hung in the black sky like a blue marble, so small, so fragile. "When I was a boy," he said, "my grandfather told me a story. A fishing boat sank in a storm. Everyone thought the crew was dead. The Coast Guard wanted to stop searching, but one captain refused. He kept looking for 3 more days, and he found them, alive, holding onto a piece of wood in the middle of the ocean." He turned to face. "My grandfather was on that boat. He lived because one man refused to give up on strangers. But sir, these aren't strangers on a boat. This is an alien civilization 100 light years away. They didn't even call us. The message was for someone else. Does that matter? Asked. Someone called for help. No one answered. For 3,000 years, no one answered. Maybe they're dead. Probably they're dead. But we don't know that. And until we do, I refuse to be another civilization that heard a cry for help and did nothing. The UESC Resolve launched 6 months later. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built, carrying 200 volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. The Fold space drive was untested for such distances. The destination was unknown. The mission was unclear. But they went anyway. Because someone had called for help. And humans always answer. Captain stood on the bridge as the Resolve prepared to jump. He was 41 years old, a veteran of the Mars conflicts, and the only person trusted to lead this mission. All stations report ready, said his first officer. Looked at the stars outside. Somewhere out there a world had burned. A people had screamed into the void. And for 3,000 years the universe had been silent. Initiate Fold space jump, he said. The stars stretched into lines, reality bent around them, and humanity took its first step into the unknown. Not because anyone asked them to, but because someone needed them to. The Resolve came out of Fold space into a graveyard. Captain stood at the main window, and for the first time in his life he had no words. Around him, his crew was silent. Some of them were crying. Others just stared with empty eyes. Prime was dead. The planet hung in space like a broken ball. Great scars covered its surface where cities had once stood. Oceans had boiled away, leaving behind dry basins filled with dust. The atmosphere was thin and gray, full of ash that had been floating for thousands of years. But the planet was not the worst part. Around it, filling space for millions of kilometers, was debris, ships, stations, satellites, all broken, all silent, an entire civilization's worth of technology now just floating garbage. How many ships? Asked quietly. His sensor officer, a young woman named Sira, checked her screens with shaking hands. Thousands, sir. Maybe tens of thousands. I'm reading at least 40 different ship types. This wasn't just a battle. This was a slaughter. Closed his eyes for a moment. He had seen death before. He had fought in wars and buried friends. But this was something else. This was the death of a people, an entire species wiped out while calling for help that never came. Sir, said another officer, I'm reading something on the surface. What? Life signs, faint but real. Someone is still alive down there. His heart jumped. Where? Underground, about 2 kilometers below the surface. I count approximately 40,000 individuals. 40,000 from a planet that had probably held billions, but still, someone had survived. Lieutenant Shin called, prepare a landing team, we're going down. Was the best soldier on the ship. She was 30 years old, short but strong, with eyes that had seen too much and still kept looking. She picked 12 people for her team and loaded them onto a shuttle. The flight down was rough. The atmosphere fought them the whole way, full of strange particles that scratched at the shuttle's hull. When they landed, they found themselves in a dead city. Buildings reached toward the sky like broken fingers. Streets were filled with rubble and dust. And everywhere there were bones. Small bones and large bones. Old bones and young bones. They had died where they stood, and no one had been left to bury them. This way, said, checking her scanner. The life signs are coming from below. They found a tunnel entrance hidden under a fallen building. It led down into darkness, but their lights showed recent use. The dust on the floor had footprints. Someone was living here. They walked for an hour before they found the first. He was tall, taller than any human, with skin that seemed to glow with a soft blue light. His body was thin and fragile-looking, but his eyes were old and full of pain. When he saw the humans, he stumbled backward in fear. "Wait," said, holding up her empty hands. "We're not here to hurt you, we came to help." The translation device took a moment to work. When it finally spoke, these words came through in a mechanical voice. You are not Dominion. What are you?" "We're human. We came from a planet called Earth. We heard your signal." The skin flickered with different colors: blue, green, yellow. The translation device couldn't read emotions but could see shock on his face. "The signal," he whispered. "The old signal, you heard it." "Yes, it's been broadcasting for 3,000 years. We came as soon as we knew." The fell to his knees. His skin turned a bright white, so bright it hurt to look at. He made sounds that the translator couldn't catch. He was crying. More came out of the darkness. Dozens of them, then hundreds. They crowded around the humans, reaching out with careful fingers, touching their uniforms, their faces, their hands. Many of them were crying too, their skin flashing with light. An older female pushed through the crowd. Her glow was softer than the others, and she moved with the careful steps of someone very old. The other moved aside for her with respect. "I am," she said. "I am elder of what remains. I have waited my whole life for this moment. My mother waited. Her mother waited. 30 generations of our people have been born and died waiting for someone to answer our call." "We're sorry we took so long," said. "We didn't know you existed until a few months ago." "A few months," laughed, but it was not a happy sound. The Dominion knew, they knew from the first day. We were their allies, their friends. We traded with them, we fought beside them, and when the Hollow came, they did nothing. The Hollow asked, "What is that?" Skin went dark. "The Hollow is death, it is hunger. It came from the spaces between stars and it consumed everything we were, our ships, our cities, our people. We fought for 70 years before the end. 70 years of dying, and the Dominion never sent a single ship." Chief Medical Officer Han had been examining the survivors while spoke. Now she came forward with a troubled look. "Lieutenant," she said quietly, "these people need help. They have diseases we've never seen. Their children are malnourished. They've been surviving but barely." Nodded and touched her communicator. "Captain, we've made contact with survivors. Approximately 40,000. They need immediate humanitarian assistance." His voice came back steady and calm. "Understood, Lieutenant. I'm contacting Earth now. Tell them help is coming." Listen to this exchange with wide eyes. "You will help us, truly, even though we are nothing to you." Knelt down so she was at eye level with the elder. The old skin was flickering with colors too fast to count. Hope and fear and doubt, all mixed together. "We came 100 light years," said. "We're not leaving until you're safe." For the first time in 3,000 years, though we're not alone. And on the surface above, the wind blew through the dead cities, carrying away the dust of the past. Something new was beginning. 3 months passed. The Resolve stayed in orbit around Prime while more ships came from Earth. They brought food, medicine, building materials, and people. Engineers who could fix things, doctors who could heal, teachers who could help them remember what they had lost. The survivors slowly came out of their caves. At first they were afraid of the sky. They had lived underground for so long that open space terrified them. But the humans were patient. They built shelters. They planted gardens. They showed that the surface was safe again. Captain spent most of his time with Elder, learning about her people and their history. They had once been great. They had built cities that touched the clouds and ships that sailed between stars. They had art and music and science. They had been happy. Then the Hollow came. "We don't know where they came from," explained one evening. They sat on a hill overlooking the new settlement, watching the sunset paint the gray sky with orange. "They just appeared one day. Billions of them moving like a storm. They ate everything, metal, stone, flesh. Nothing could stop them. And the Dominion didn't help." Skin flickered with a dark purple color that had learned meant anger. The Dominion sent one message. They said they were sorry, but the Hollow were too strong. They said they would remember us. Then they went silent. They abandoned you. They saved themselves, sighed. I used to hate them, but now I am just tired. Hate takes energy, and my people have none left. Put his hand on her shoulder. It was a human gesture, but the had learned to understand it. You're not alone anymore, he said. Whatever comes next, we face it together. What came next arrived 1 week later. The ship came out of fold space without warning. It was massive, 10 times larger than the Resolve, covered in crystals that glowed with inner light. Had never seen anything like it. None of them had. Unknown vessel, identify yourself, he said over the communication channel. The response came in a voice that sounded like glass breaking. This is the Dominion diplomatic vessel Eternal Light. We are here to speak with the ones who call themselves human. Looked at his crew. They all had the same expression, a mixture of curiosity and anger. These were the people who had let the die. This is Captain of the UESC Resolve. You may send a representative to our ship, alone. There was a long pause, then acceptable. The Dominion ambassador arrived in a small shuttle that moved like it was alive. When she stepped out, understood why the ship was covered in crystals. The ambassador was made of crystal. She was humanoid in shape, but her body was clear and sharp, like a statue carved from diamond. Light moved inside her, shifting from color to color. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once. I am Prism of Authority, she said. I speak for the Dominion of 12 worlds. You have entered our space without permission. You have interfered with a protected species. Explain yourselves. Lieutenant Commander O was the ship's diplomatic officer. She stepped forward with a calm face, but could see the tension in her shoulders. Protected species, she said. We found the living in caves, eating whatever they could find, dying from diseases that your technology could cure in seconds. That's your idea of protection. Prism of Authority's light flickered. The situation was complicated. Resources were limited. Decisions had to be made. Decisions stepped forward. He was not good at diplomacy. He was a soldier, and he spoke like one. You left them to die. For 3,000 years they sent that signal and you did nothing. They were your allies, your friends, and you abandoned them. We had no choice. The Hollow could not be defeated. Sending ships would have meant losing those ships. We chose to preserve what we could. You chose to be cowards. The crystal being went very still. Her light turned a cold blue. You are young, she said. Your species is barely a footnote in galactic history. You have not seen what the Hollow can do. You have not watched worlds burn and fleets disappear. We have fought them for 10,000 years and we have never won. Only survived. They could not be saved. We accepted this truth. We don't accept truths like that, said. Where we come from, you don't leave people behind, ever. Then you will die just like every species foolish enough to stand against the Hollow. Prism of Authority turned toward the door. Leave this system. Return to your single world. Stay quiet. Stay small. Perhaps the Hollow will not notice you. And if we don't leave? The ambassador stopped. She turned back, and for a moment, something like curiosity appeared in her shifting lights. Then we will not stop you. But we will not help you either. When the Hollow come for you, and they will come, do not call for the Dominion. We have learned that some calls cannot be answered. She left without another word. The bridge was silent for a long time after she was gone. Then Commander spoke. Captain, she might be right. If the Dominion couldn't beat the Hollow with 12 worlds, what chance do we have with one? Walk to the window. Below him, on the surface of Prime, he could see lights, human lights, two peoples working together to rebuild what had been destroyed. We didn't come here to beat the Hollow, he said. We came here because someone needed help. That hasn't changed. He turned to face his crew. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we're staying. Tell them to send more ships, more people, more supplies. We're going to rebuild this world. And if the Hollow come, smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made his choice and would not turn back. Then we'll figure something out. That's what humans do. On the surface, Elder watched the Dominion ship leave. A young human soldier stood beside her. "Are you afraid?" he asked. Skin glowed with a soft golden light. "I have been afraid for 3,000 years," she said. "But today, for the first time, I am also hopeful. Your people are strange human. You run toward danger instead of away from it." "Is that bad?" "No," she looked at him with ancient eyes. "It is exactly what the galaxy needs." 18 months of peace, that was all they got. In that time, humanity built wonders on Prime. Cities rose from the ashes. Farms grew food that they had not eaten in generations. Children learned to play outside, under a sky that no longer scared them. Dr. Park came from Earth with a team of scientists, determined to study the enemy that had destroyed so much. What they learned kept her awake at night. "The Hollow are not a species," she explained to the council one evening. Around her sat Captain, Elder, and the leaders of both peoples. "They are more like a force of nature, a swarm, billions of individual units that move together like one mind." "Like insects?" asked Sergeant Major. He was a big man with a face, responsible for training both human and soldiers. "Bigger, smarter, and hungry for everything," pulled up a hologram. It showed a dark cloud moving through space, swallowing everything in its path. "They eat matter, any kind. Metal, rock, organic material. They break it down and use it to make more of themselves. The more they eat, the larger the swarm becomes." "How do we kill them?" asked. "We don't know. They tried everything. Nuclear weapons, biological agents, energy beams, nothing worked for long. The Hollow adapt. Whatever you use against them once, they become immune to." The room was quiet, then spoke. "So we find something new, something they've never seen." "Captain, you don't understand. They've been doing this for maybe millions of years. They've seen everything." "They haven't seen us." Wanted to argue, but something in his eyes stopped her. She had learned in 18 months that humans were strange. They didn't give up, even when giving up made sense. She had also learned that this was sometimes their greatest strength. "I'll keep working," she said. "Maybe there's something in the records we missed." 6 weeks later, the Hollow came. The first warning came from a long-range sensor station. A young officer named Bay saw it on her screen and thought there was an error. The reading was too large, too wrong. She checked 3 times before calling it in. "Command, this is Station 7. I'm reading a massive object entering the system. Size estimate is, this can't be right." "Station 7, report." "Sir, the object is approximately the size of a small moon, and it's moving toward Prime." The swarm arrived like a nightmare-given form. It filled the sky, blotting out the stars, turning day into night. From the ground, it looked like a living shadow descending upon the world. Every ship humanity had launched to defend the planet. They sent their handful of remaining vessels to fight beside them. Together, they formed a line between the Hollow and the surface. Captain stood on the bridge of the Resolve, now upgraded with technology. Around him, his crew worked in grim silence. They all knew the odds. They fought anyway. All ships opened fire. The battle began. Human weapons hit the swarm and burned through thousands of units. Energy beams cut lines of destruction through the darkness. For a few minutes, they seemed to be winning. Then the Hollow adapted. The first ship to die was the UESC Courage. It was there one moment and gone the next, swallowed by a wave of darkness. Then the UESC Hope. Then the vessel Song of Memory. One by one, the defenders fell. "They're learning our frequencies," shouted the weapons officer. "Every time we hit them, they change. Our missiles aren't locking anymore. Switch to manual targeting. Fire everything." On the surface, Sergeant Major led ground forces against hollow units that broke through the orbital defense. They were small, about the size of dogs, with sharp legs and hungry mouths. They moved fast and died hard. "Hold the line," screamed over the chaos. "Don't let them reach the city." Beside him, soldiers fought with courage they had forgotten they possessed. 3,000 years of fear, and now they stood in the open, weapons in their hands, refusing to run. But it was not enough. The swarm was too large, too hungry, too adaptable. For every unit they killed, 100 more took its place. Then engineer specialist, No Sora had an idea. She was in a damaged section of the Resolve, bleeding from a wound on her head, surrounded by broken equipment. She had been thinking about what Doctor said. The Hollow adapt. They respond to patterns. They process information. What if you gave them information they couldn't process? She grabbed her communicator with bloody fingers. "Doctor, I need you, now." 5 minutes later, they were working together in the ruined engineering bay. Around them, the ship shook with impacts. They ignored it. "The Hollow are drawn to signals," Sora explained, typing frantically. "Complex signals. That's how they find civilizations. They follow the noise. So we give them noise they can't understand. Not random. Random is easy. We give them structure without meaning. Patterns that promise answers but deliver nothing. A puzzle with no solution." His eyes widened. "You want to confuse them. I want to break their brains." They worked for 20 minutes while the battle raged. They combined human signal technology with frequency modulators. They created something that had never existed before, a message of beautiful nonsense. "This is insane," said. "It will never work." "Then we die anyway," Sora replied. "At least we tried something new." They broadcast the signal. For 3 seconds nothing happened, then the swarm stopped. It was the strangest thing anyone had ever seen. Billions of units, frozen in space. Their coordination broke. Individual pieces spun in different directions, colliding with each other, trying to process what they were receiving. "It's working," whispered. "It's actually working." Captain didn't hesitate. "All ships attack now, hit them with everything." The survivors of the human and fleet unleashed every weapon they had left. This time, the Hollow didn't adapt. They couldn't. They were too busy trying to understand the impossible signal. The battle lasted 11 more hours. By the end, both sides were exhausted. The Hollow swarm, reduced to a fraction of its original size, finally retreated. It pulled back, gathered itself, and disappeared into the darkness between stars. On the surface, soldiers who had been sure they would die stood in silence. Some cried, some laughed, some just stared at the sky, unable to believe what had happened. The Hollow had been driven back. For the first time in recorded galactic history, someone had fought the Hollow and won. Sora collapsed in the engineering bay, exhausted beyond words. Caught her before she hit the floor. "We did it," Sora mumbled. "We actually did it." "You did it," corrected. "You beautiful, crazy genius." On the bridge, Captain sat in his chair and allowed himself one moment of relief. They had won. It was not over. The Hollow would return, but today they had won. His communicator beeped. It was a message from the Dominion ship that had been watching the battle from a safe distance. "Impossible," was all it said. Smiled and turned off the screen. Let them think about that for a while. The news traveled faster than any ship could fly. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every shape and size gathered around their screens to watch the recording. The Battle of Prime. The impossible victory. A species that had existed for barely a blink in galactic time had done what the mighty Dominion could not. The Hollow could be beaten. Messages began arriving at Prime within days. Some were from the Dominion, demanding to know how humanity had achieved the impossible. Others were from worlds the Dominion had abandoned long ago. Forgotten peoples on dying planets, sending the same question over and over. Can you help us too?" Captain, now promoted to Commodore, stood on the bridge of the Resolve and watched the messages pile up. His ship was damaged. His crew was exhausted. They had barely survived the battle, and now the entire galaxy wanted something from them. "What do we tell them?" asked Commander. Thought for a long moment, then he made a decision. "We tell them yes." He recorded a message and broadcast it on every frequency, in every language the translation systems could manage. It reached the Dominion's capital. It reached isolated colonies on the edge of known space. It reached worlds that had given up hope centuries ago. "This is Commodore of the United Earth Space Command. 3 years ago, we heard a signal that was not meant for us. We could have ignored it. We could have stayed safe on our little world, quiet and small, hoping the darkness would not find us. We chose to answer instead. We found the dying in caves, abandoned by those who promised to protect them. We stayed. We rebuilt. And when the Hollow came, we fought together. Human and side by side, we did not run. We did not surrender. And we won. I will not lie to you. The Hollow are still out there. They will come again. They will always come again. But now we know something important. They can be stopped. Not by hiding, not by sacrifice, but by standing together and refusing to give up. The Dominion has 12 worlds. They chose safety. They chose silence. They chose to let the weak die so the strong could survive. We are only one world. We have fewer ships, fewer weapons, fewer people, but we are offering something they never could. A promise. If you send a signal, we will hear it. If you ask for help, we will come. Not because it is easy, not because it is safe, because that is what you do when someone is afraid in the dark. You light a fire and you hope it spreads. The response was overwhelming. Within a year, 17 species had reached out to humanity. Some were members of the Dominion who were tired of the old ways. Others were forgotten worlds that had been waiting for rescue that never came. They sent representatives to Prime, where the first galactic coalition was formed. Not everyone was happy. The Dominion saw humanity as a threat, a dangerous new power that could upset the careful balance they had maintained for. Prism of Authority sent warning after warning, demanding that humanity stop interfering in galactic affairs. His response was simple. We're not interfering, we're helping. There's a difference. Dr. Park established a research center on Prime, bringing together scientists from a dozen species. Together, they studied the Hollow, looking for weaknesses, developing new weapons, preparing for the next attack. No Sora became the center's chief engineer, still coming up with crazy ideas that somehow worked. Sergeant Major traveled from world to world, training soldiers who had never held a weapon. He taught them how to fight. More importantly, he taught them why to fight. You're not just defending your planet, he told them. You're defending your right to exist. No one can take that from you unless you let them. Elder became an ambassador. She visited worlds the Dominion had forgotten, carrying a message of hope. I lived in darkness for 3,000 years, she told them. I know what it is to be abandoned. I know what it is to believe that no one cares. But the humans came. They came for us. And now we go together to make sure no one else has to wait as long as we did. The galaxy was changing. Slowly but surely the old fear was fading. Species that had hidden in the shadows for generations were stepping into the light. They were building. They were learning. They were preparing. And on Prime, the center of this new movement, the people were finally coming home. The underground caves were empty now. New cities covered the surface, built with human technology and art. The land was healing. Gardens grew where ruins had stood. Children played in streets that had known only death for 3,000 years. Commodore stood on a hill overlooking the largest of these new cities. Beside him was Elder, her skin glowing with the soft gold of contentment. Do you think we can really win? She asked. Against the Hollow, against everything. Watched a group of children running below. Human children and children playing together, their laughter carrying up the hill like music. "I don't know," he admitted. "The Hollow are old and strong and hungry. The Dominion is watching us like hunters, waiting for us to fail. The galaxy is full of danger we haven't even discovered yet." That doesn't sound hopeful. "But here's what I do know," turned to face her. 3 years ago you were dying in caves. Today your people are building a future. 3 years ago humanity had never left our solar system. Today we have allies across the stars. 3 years ago no one had ever beaten the Hollow. Today we proved it could be done. We have no idea what's coming next, but we've already done impossible things. Why should we stop now?" Skin flickered through a rainbow of colors. She was smiling in the way they smiled. "You are a strange species," she said. "You run toward danger, you help strangers, you light fires in the darkness and expect them to spread. Is that bad?" "No." She looked at the sky, where human and ships patrolled together, keeping watch over a world that was finally at peace. "It is exactly what the galaxy needs." Far away in the cold depths of space, the Hollow were gathering. The swarm was rebuilding, growing, preparing for another attack. They had never failed before. They would not accept failure now. But something had changed. Across the galaxy, lights were flickering on. Species that had hidden were standing up. Peoples that had given up were finding hope. A fire was spreading just as had promised. The Hollow would come again. But this time, they would not find their prey alone and afraid. This time, they would find them ready. And they would learn what humanity had known all along. Some signals are worth answering. Some fires are worth spreading. And some species refuse to let the darkness win.